The Raiders are Baltimore bound, looking for win number one. It's next man up for the defensive line, a unit Fox's Peter Schrager said teams should be scared of. He joins the show. Plus, protect the football. The voice of the Raiders, Jason Horowitz, tells us why winning the turnover battle will be key in Charm City. And stepping it up in the trenches, NFL Media's Brian Baldinger breaks down the Raiders' offensive line. The Silver and Black Show starts now. Welcome into the Silver and Black Show, everybody. I'm Amber Theoharis. The Raiders need a win, but so do the Ravens. Both are 0-1. Rolling into M&T Bank Stadium, though, is always a challenge. The Ravens have won 71% of their games at home under John Harbaugh. The Raiders, they are the underdog, but this is an opportunity for Antonio Pierce to make a statement, a big one, in the AFC. And to break it down for us, a man who has covered many, many games in Baltimore as well as Las Vegas, Peter Schrager of Fox and NFL Media. Hey, Schrags, it's good to see you.
Hey, Amber, it's great being on. I love doing this, and I'm excited for this game, a Week 2 battle between the Silver and Black and the Ravens.
That's right. And Lamar Jackson, we all know, he's a two-time MVP. Antonio Pierce talked about what's coming. The guy just ran for 122 yards against the Chiefs. We know there's Derrick Henry as well. And we also know that J.K. Dobbins gashed the Raiders last week with the Chargers. So would you say that run defense is a #1 priority for the Raiders?
Absolutely. But I was surprised with both of those efforts. Let's start with the Raiders. I was thinking that would be the strength of the team, to see Dobbins and to see Crosby and those boys get pushed around a little bit. I think that's a wake-up call, something they will not want to see happen again this week. But also, the Ravens ran the ball really well, and they did so with Lamar being the bulk of it. But that was behind 3 new offensive linemen, a new offensive line coach, and an offensive game plan that did not look like the one we saw last year, which had Lamar basically playing out of the pocket. They had him moving a lot. So this is going to be a tall task, but you look at Crosby and you look at the rest of that front seven, you can't have what happened last week happen again. And, they don't exactly roll over at home either. They're pretty good in that building.
Yeah, I mean, we ran a preseason soundbite that you had on Good Morning Football where you said that this Raiders defensive line is one that the Chiefs should be scared of. But now this week, no Malcolm Kuntz and Tyree Wilson not expected to play as well. So what does that mean for Max Crosby and especially the Raiders pass rush?
Yeah, and look, my breakout players list is something that goes big on the internet. I had Kuntz as number 7 on that list because I thought, with everyone looking at Crosby, Kuntz, who finished the season so strong last year, I thought he was going to have a breakout. What a setback to be injured. And then, you talk about a first-round pick, a top 10 guy who can't get on the field in week 2. That's a problem. So suddenly you're looking at Christian Wilkins and saying, we paid you that money. Like, you've got to go now clog the middle. And you look at Max Crosby and saying, if you're really a top 10 player in the NFL, we can't give up 200 yards rushing. We can't have Derrick Henry go for 130 and Lamar go for another 120. So strength of the team, yes. And you look at Antonio Pierce and Pat Graham, you're like, those are defensive guys. There is no excuse. You should not have that happen, what happened last week in L.A., and this is like the last opponent you want to see because they run the ball so well in Baltimore.
Well, they could use a little help from the offense. Scoring more than 10 points would help as well, give the defense a little bit of a break there. But the Ravens, they rolled out a new weapon. We weren't expecting to see Isaiah Likely, the tight end there, have as big of a game as he did. And he was the one catching the passes, not Mark Andrews, to many fantasy managers' dismay, by the way, people that drafted Mark Andrews. But how dangerous could they be, especially at these two tight end sets?
No doubt. You nailed it. And you look at the Raiders, you have like Mayer and you have Bowers. And you're like, that's the team that's supposed to have 2 tight ends that crush. It's not the Ravens. Where did Likely come from? Likely had a nice little year when Mark Andrews was out a couple of years ago and he got injured, and Likely stepped up. But it was interesting because fantasy owners were probably thinking Andrews and Henry, and then it was Justice Hill and Likely. But Likely's a problem. That guy is the real deal, and he's now not some young kid. He's been there a couple of years now, and Lamar has been working with him in practice for several seasons. Just another thing to worry about. And gosh, Justice Hill came out of nowhere, who's been in the league for a while too, and he was such an effective player out of the screen game. So hands are full for Pierce and Graham, but if I learned anything from last week, whether it was the Patriots going into Cincinnati, whether it was the Vikings going into New Jersey and beating the Giants the way they did, these road teams, they can upset you now early in the season. And I don't think the Raiders are going to be taking this one lightly. I don't think they're going to take anything for granted. They'll come in, they'll be ready to fight.
Yeah, not under Antonio Pierce and his mentality. And we didn't really talk about Zay Flowers. What are you expecting downfield in some of the matchups with the Raiders secondary and a young Zay Flowers?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, we'll see if we can get one of those big plays from the defensive backfield from the Raiders that they would get, and whether it be one of the Joneses or somebody else stepping up and making a play. In truth, though, it's like, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Aguilar is there. They've got so many weapons out there in Baltimore, and it's Lamar's legs. If it's not open, you got to be ready for everything.
I think turnovers will be key. I mean, Jack Jones or somebody coming up big, like you said, and a momentum-changing play could really affect this game. Let's go back to what the Chiefs were doing last week. They had more success last week passing the ball than they did running it against the Ravens. And I know AP wants to be a run-first team, and we all know it opens up the pass. But when you got Devontae and Brock Bowers and all the pass catchers that the Raiders do, would it not be a bad idea to kind of spread it out a little bit?
You're telling me. You drafted a tight end with your 13th overall pick. Let's use him. And Bowers played well last week, but let's make him the figure, and Devontae Adams. Look, they're talking about one of the best players in all of football. So if you bring in Gardner and you're like, Gardner's going to not hurt us, and Gardner's a veteran, let him throw the ball, because gosh, last week it was like you kept on knocking on the door. You punt the ball on 4th and 1, they score, and that's the game. But it's like, there were no big shots. There was no big splash plays. Take a shot. You're not supposed to win this game against the Ravens. You're in Baltimore. Take a shot. You watched it last week. Xavier Worthy had a touchdown because of a miscommunication on the defensive backfield between the Chiefs. Take a shot. Let's see what happens.
Take a shot with Trey Tucker, right? I mean, look what we saw in the preseason. We saw that connection. Big play potential there.
No doubt.
Let's talk about,
and he is a lightning rod.
Yeah, and let's talk about
the guys. Let's go.
they do, that's for sure. They got the horses. Let them run. 4th and 1, you brought that up, and you have such good perspective because you've covered so many different rookie head coaches in your career. So, what is the learning curve like for a rookie head coach? What takes a little bit of time to polish, and what can be expected? Because AP did take heat for that, for not going for it on 4th and 1. Granted, his team didn't convert on short yardage earlier in the game.
I get it. And that's the thing. In a silo, everyone says, what do you mean he punted in that situation? You should, of course, go for it. But if you watch the game, they weren't converting in short yardage, and the defense was playing really well up to that point and wasn't giving up points. So it's like, stop them. We get the ball back. We got a shot here. Of course, it went the exact opposite way. So we all become, Monday morning quarterbacks. But you live and you learn. If Antonio Pierce is this, guttural, rah, let's go, I'm one of you guys, type coaches where he's like, I want to be aggressive, and then you don't play conservatively when you're on the road. You go for it there. You try to steal one. You try to make a play. Like I look, in the moment, I wasn't as outraged as everyone else was. And then the next morning, everyone had their 2 cents when they looked at the situation and they went online and they see what the analytics guys say. Truth of the matter is, Antonio Pierce is a defensive coach at heart, and I bet you he felt like he could stop those guys one more drive. It just didn't happen that way.
You've been complimentary of the Raiders at times coming into this season, and Antonio Pierce. What were you most excited about with this team? Where did you think some of the strengths would lie?
Yeah, I really like a lot of the stuff that they were doing on defense last year. I thought their defense was outstanding, and this big need for a quarterback, and they should go get Penix, or they should go trade up. I was one of them saying, hey, O'Connell played well last year. He won them some games, beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and you just signed Gardner Minshew. Like, you could win with that. They out and they go get another tight end. I'm like, I was pretty excited about what they had because I thought their defense was going to lead the way with all those players on the defensive line, including Wilkins and Crosby, who I think are two, top 10 defensive linemen in the league. And I think they actually played okay last week. So I really like the defense. I really do think up front there's their strength. And if the offense can just get enough, and you've got guys like Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams, hey, we should be able to score 20 points in a game. And if you do that, it should be in every game. So did I pick them to win the AFC West? No. But do I see them as one of the bottom barrel teams in the league? Absolutely not. I think the Raiders fight, and I think they're disciplined, and I think their defense is good enough to win several games.
All right, finish this sentence for this Sunday. The Raiders will win this game if blank.
The Raiders win this game if they can stop Lamar Jackson for going for like 120 on the ground. If you make Lamar beat you with his arm and you can stay in this thing by a possession, you guys are going to be in this to the very end. Gardner Minshew's certainly not scared of going into that building. He's played in every building. I think if you keep Lamar under 120, this could be a Raiders win.
Peter Schrager, you are awesome. You raced home from shooting Good Morning Football just to be here with us, and we really appreciate you taking the time.
No doubt.
Always good to see you, my friend.
I appreciate you asking. Good luck.
All right.
Good luck to the Raiders this weekend. I'll be watching.
Let's go. All right, still to come on the Silver and Black Show, he's the voice of the Raiders. Jason Horowitz stops by to talk about the Raiders' run game, winning the turnover battle, and more. Stick with us.
Some days are long, some nights never end. I mark the fleeting seconds glide, I pray to the coming wind. And timelines never stood around for me. I love every sky
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
Taste is not an option. Taste is everything. 1800, the world's most awarded tequila.
In 300 feet, turn left.
With Cox's fiber-powered internet, you can do brilliant things.
Exit approaching.
Like upload your voice to Dad's GPS in no time flat.
And I miss you, Daddy. Happy birthday.
Get multi-gig download speeds powered by fiber. Upgrade your internet today with Cox, the nation's fastest internet provider. Limited availability in select areas.
The Silver and Black Show is brought to you by Cox, proud partner of the Las Vegas Raiders. 1800 Tequila, official partner of the Raiders. Taste is everything. Please drink responsibly. And by Allegiant, the official airline of the Raiders. Low fares, non-stop flights, only at Allegiant.com.
Pistol for Minshew. Sends Myers in motion to the left. Takes the snap, dumps it out to the flat. Madison at the 30. Hops over a defender, 25. Into space, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Madison. Oh, he hopped the defender, and he left the Chargers in their dust on a 31-yard passing touchdown, and the Raiders have a 6-3 lead.
It's so good to hear his voice. Let's bring in our next guest. He is the voice of the Raiders, Jason Horowitz, our good friend, who will be calling the game on Compass Media this Sunday in Baltimore. It just felt good to hear your voice. It felt normal again. You know, football's back, and here we are in week 2. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. That play was great. I'm even more impressed that we found out that Alexander Madison's wife went into labor during or before the game, which makes that it's like he was running to the hospital, and I wish we would have known that before the game because that would have been awesome to put into a call. But no, it's that place was loud. Everyone who said it was 60-40 Raiders fans, maybe more, is accurate. And hopefully, this week in a much more difficult environment, they're able to put on a better performance.
Yeah, traveling to Baltimore isn't easy, and the Ravens offense in a loss to the Chiefs put up 452 yards of total offense.
Yeah.
That's the defending Super Bowl champion defense, by the way. How can Max Crosby and company stop them? What's going to be the keys?
Well, I mean, the key is stopping Lamar Jackson, right? I mean, that's the obvious. And I think, number one, the Raiders are going to have to get some more pressure on Lamar than they did on Justin Herbert, at least in the second half. I think the first half, they were all over Justin Herbert. At no point was he comfortable. We all know how great that defense was in the first half for the Raiders. You know, yes, they gave up 6 points, but those 2 field goal drives for the Chargers were each 5 yards. So they didn't actually give up anything, and the Chargers were 0 of 7 on third down. So we know how great the defense was for 35 to 40 minutes of that football game. But Lamar Jackson's a totally different entity, right? He carried the ball 16 times last week. He hasn't carried it that many times in forever. It seemed like there was extra motivation for him to do that. But on the positive, if you're a Raiders fan, you know, in talking to people who cover the Ravens, they think their offensive line, especially on the right side, is going to be rough. We saw it against Chris Jones against Kansas City, which means Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby. We'll see what's on the other side this week. But that means advantage Raiders, so we'll see if they can take advantage of it.
Talking about the defense, as you mentioned, giving up only 6 points in the first half, that's great, but consistency was an issue because, you know, the dam kind of broke eventually by the fourth quarter, 13 points alone in the fourth quarter. What did this defense do very well? I know you said early on the pass rush was there, but what would you like to see improve?
What they did well was getting pushed in the middle. Right? You know, Christian Wilkins made a bunch of plays. Adam Butler made a bunch of plays. John Jenkins, you know, last year I don't think anyone talked about John Jenkins coming to the Raiders, and then he had a career season, and he's 35 years old, and he had a very good game again against the Chargers on Sunday. So like those things are going to need to continue. I think what's going to have to be very important, because it's going to be warm again. It's expected to be mid-80s in Baltimore on Sunday afternoon. The aspect of the defense not wearing down really falls on the shoulders of the offense having consistent plays. You know, you expect Lamar Jackson and the Ravens to make some first downs. They're going to convert some third downs. He's going to do it with his legs at a minimum 2 or 3 times. You have to assume that's going to happen, but the offense for the Raiders is going to have to sustain drives. If that does not happen, the defense doesn't have a chance of not wearing down throughout the course of the game.
It's not a good thing that Malcolm Kuntz is out. We just had Peter Schrager on the show, and he said that he had Kuntz as his number 7 breakout player in the NFL this year. So yeah, big expectations. But who do you think is going to step up? It's next man up.
Well, I thought Charles Snowden, who started last week, you know, he hadn't played in an NFL game since 2001. I thought there were some plays where he stood out, and I think he made some impact plays. There were some plays that looked like, you know, on that side of the defense that they were out of position, and I think that happened a couple of times. So they're going to need him to continue to make some strides. We'll see what they decide to do with Kayvon Chason, the former first-round pick of the Jaguars, who was cut, and then the Raiders added him to the practice squad this week. We'll see if he's elevated or activated for this game. I don't know what that's going to be. I know Antonio Pierce said this week that Tyree Wilson's not looking good, so his opportunity that we thought was going to be there coming into this game is not. So I think it's a mixture of all those guys. Robert Spillane played really well, which we came to expect last year. He had a really solid season. Maybe he should have been a Pro Bowler last year. I think he played well again on Sunday. Divine Diablo needs to play a little bit better than he did this past weekend. I think that will be a big aspect. And if you get mixed with the other guys in the front, I think you're okay.
How about the secondary, the matchups downfield, you know, talking about Zay Flowers and Bateman and Aguilar, the receivers over there. The tackles could be a little bit better from the Raiders secondary. There were some missed tackles last year. But I think turnovers is going to be huge, right? Just being ball hawks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, we saw this last year. And if you go back to, you know, Patrick Graham and any conversation he's had since taking over as defensive coordinator for the Raiders, the number one thing he says, we have to get takeaways. And the number 2 thing he says is we have to stop the run. And so they didn't get any takeaways. So that certainly hurts. We saw this last year, though. You know, the Raiders defense last year certainly had some games early on where they did not get any takeaways and the team lost the turnover battle. But that started to change 3-4 weeks into the season. So we'll see if that changes early on here in the 2024 season. You know, the stopping the run aspect to this, Amber, I really think that they stopped the run well. And I know I'm saying that the Raiders gave up 178 yards on the ground or 176 yards on the ground, which is, you know, 5th or 6th most in the NFL. But 2 of those were 2 runs for J.K. Dobbins that totaled 108 yards. Mm-hmm. And look, obviously they happen. You can't take them away. But yeah, but if you take every other run that the Chargers had last week, they averaged like 2.5 yards a carry, less than 3 yards a carry. So again, that's important. Obviously takeaways are important. but the offense can't turn it over 3 times. The offense probably has this offense with where it is right now. Who knows where it's going to be? We saw some glimpses of Brock Bowers. I think we saw some second half holes for the ground game. But where this offense was on Sunday, I think they're going to be in a major hole if they turn it over more than once in any football game, certainly this weekend.
And especially, yes, against a team that led the NFL in takeaways last year in the Ravens. So they are ball hawks over
and
there.
Sacks. And points allowed. Yep. And points allowed.
It's a Ravens defense at home. And, you know, we said this in the open, the Ravens have a 71% winning percentage in Baltimore under John Harbaugh. Have you covered a game yet there? Or is this your first time calling an NFL game in M&T Bank?
I haven't been in M&T Bank Stadium since lacrosse Final Fours of years ago. And that is not the same. But you grew up there. I mean, you covered Baltimore teams. You know how, I don't know that crazy is the right word. Baltimore fans are like very passionate. It's like they've got all this history and, hey, Babe Ruth grew up down the street from this stadium right here. Like they have all of that in their history, right? And
so did Tupac. Like, well, so did Tupac, by the way. Babe Ruth and Tupac is what we're known for, and Cal Ripken. Yeah, I'm from that area. I was doing the math. I think I've covered over 80 games in that stadium. And so I can say it is a tough environment. It's a huge stadium. Not a lot of away fans usually in the stadium, and it's very loud. So I'm sure the offense is going to need to be on point as far as communication is concerned. But look, you got to feed off of that. And I do think Antonio Pierce and I do think Max Crosby and company and Devontae will feed off of that for sure, because that's where passion comes from.
Well, early too, Amber, and I think that's the other part. Remember, this was the last time these fans saw the Ravens at home. The Ravens were losing the AFC Championship game in a game that they all thought they were going to get revenge on Patrick Mahomes, and they go to Arrowhead and they lose to Patrick Mahomes again last Thursday. So there's just, you know, this is a buildup, right? It's a home opener for a team that expects to go to the Super Bowl. They've got a 2-time MVP. You know, you mentioned the defense. I don't think this defense is as good. Patrick Queen's now a Steeler. They lost a guy on the defensive line. Most of their secondary's back, but I don't quite think they are as good. Kyle Van Noy's got the eye injury, so that changes things from an experience standpoint with their interior of the defensive and the linebacking core. So, look, if the Raiders can withstand the noise, the emotion, they're going to celebrate a bunch of things pregame. If they can withstand some of that early, I think this is going to be a game that they can be until the end, and then we'll see if they can make the plays to win it.
Good point about the defense being different. Now their defensive coordinator that took them to the AFC Championship game is in Seattle, and Mike McDonald. So they have a new defensive coordinator. All right, give me a bold prediction for Week 2 if you have one.
Oh boy, Trey Tucker is going to have 75 yards of offense.
Hey, now, I'm with you.
Now,
I don't think that's bold. I think that's very possible.
Possible, Amber. I think it's necessary. You know, like we saw Trey Tucker with explosive plays in the preseason, and if he can get a 30-plus yard reception, they'll get him on a run. You know, you get him the ball 3-4 times, you get up to 75 yards of offense, and that's necessary because that takes coverage away from Devontae. Jacoby Myers, we know what he can do if they can get him the ball. Again, though, all of this stems from the fact that can they protect. Yep. If they cannot protect Gardner Minshew, then it's not going to matter, and forget what I just said.
Yeah, got to let that ball rip, though. There's that feeling. You're going to have to take some chances against this team in Baltimore to quiet that crowd. All right, Jason Horowitz, thanks for being here with us. We can't wait to hear your voice on the radio coming up this Sunday in Baltimore.
Thank you, Amber. Look forward to it.
All right, so to come, NFL Media's Brian Baldinger joins the show. We're talking Raiders offensive line and run game with a special edition of Baldy's Breakdowns. That's next.
Some days are long, some nights never end. I'm on the fleeting seconds flight. I pray to the coming wind. And timelines never stood around for me. I love every sky
In 300 feet, turn left.
With Cox's fiber-powered internet, you can do brilliant things.
Exit approaching.
Like upload your voice to Dad's GPS in no time flat.
And I miss you, Daddy. Happy birthday.
Get multi-gig download speeds powered by fiber. Upgrade your internet today with Cox, the nation's fastest internet provider. Limited availability in select areas.
Taste is not an option. Taste is everything. 1800, the world's most awarded tequila.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
Welcome back. As the Raiders travel to Baltimore to take on the Ravens, there are two truths we must acknowledge. Rushing for just 71 yards and scoring just 10 points, it's not going to beat the Ravens. So how can the Raiders offense get going? We say hello to our good friend, Brian Baldinger. You know him from Baldy's Breakdowns, NFL Media. Baldy, so good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Amber. I mean, the Raiders are heading back to your charm city. So that's always a big deal, but I'm doing well. We just got through the first week of the season. I was in Brazil for that game Friday night, and I got back to Indianapolis for a game between the Colts and the Texans. And then I kind of was in the film room for the last 3 days. So it's been busy, but I expected it to be exactly like it's started so far.
Well, we're going to get to that film room in just a minute. We're going to do a Baldy's breakdown. But first, I just want to get your take on the Raiders' run game. What did you see from Zamir White? And are you buying this debate that maybe Alexander Mattison should be the featured back or just the hot hand after one game?
Alexander's had that opportunity in Minnesota last year. He wasn't great. He didn't replace Dalvin Cook like they thought. So he's with the Raiders now. I thought Zamir missed some holes, Amber. I got a play where, backs got to find the daylight. You've got to have the foot quickness and the vision to go find it. They had a guy, that had that in Josh Jacobs, a guy that really had great vision. And so vision is a big part of being a running back. And I question a couple of decisions, not always. I'm speaking like a true offensive lineman here, Amber. It's not always just the offensive line. There's a lot of those factors of why they only ran for 70-something yards. I think the running backs have to be better. Certainly the line can be better. The tight ends have to be better. And the receivers, when they get involved, it helps. And I can show that too.
Yeah, I want to talk about the receivers. AP has said all along he wants to be a run-first team. Your old colleague at NFL Media, he's over at Fox now, James Jones, was here on Raiders Game Day with me and Eric Allen, and he suggested a different approach, sort of prioritizing getting the ball in the playmakers' hands like Devontae and Brock Bowers, and not necessarily, you kind of got to let your personnel dictate the type of offense, not just identify what the offense is going to be.
I would agree with James on that completely. I mean, if James is on the show, I'd nod my head in affirmative. I think, Brock Bowers was drafted where he was because he is a playmaker and he is very, very smooth as Devontae and Jacoby. There's nothing wrong with just getting the ball out and getting the playmakers' hands and let them create as much as they can while you kind of work. They don't have earth movers on their offensive line. Like I saw some of these rookie linemen come in, Dominic Pooney and Fuaga. Like they have guys that have come into this league, Zach Frazier, Graham Barton. I mean, there's some rookies that came into this business and they look like the real deal. The Raiders aren't fortunate to have those type of players. They can work in concert with one another to get some movement, to create some lanes, but I don't think it's their greatest strength in offense right now.
One of the strengths that we saw, or at least a potential strength, is Brock Bowers. He had the most receptions by a rookie tight end in Raiders history in his debut. How can he effectively be used along with Michael Mayer to boost this offense? And did you like what you saw from him?
Yeah, I did. In fact, I talked to Daniel Jeremiah about him. He was probably his biggest fan. He has a chance to be special, really special. He's very, very smooth. He knows how to separate. I think he's really talented with the ball in his hands, just being able to make people miss and find the open lanes. Like, I just think you got to create offense for players like that. You can't just let it come to him. I think, whether it's these flex tight ends right now, and you're going to see two of them in Baltimore this weekend, and likely, along with Andrews. I mean, you gotta, they're big targets, and they run like receivers, like Travis Kelce does. And so I think you got to feed them as much as you possibly can.
You've tweeted about the potential that you see in Raiders rookie, the second-round pick, Jackson Powers-Johnson. How do the Raiders integrate him into the line after missing so much of the preseason? And why did you tweet about the potential?
Well, I mean, he showed that at Oregon. I mean, we knew that there was going to be 3 starting centers coming out of this draft. I mean, it just depended. I knew the Steelers loved Zach Frazier. He went to school right down the road in Morgantown from Pittsburgh. Graham Barton, I mean, I'm a little biased. I'm a Duke guy. But I knew his position was going to be center, even though he played left tackle at Duke. And Tampa saw the same thing. You have to upgrade the center position, Amber, if you're going to be a great offensive line. It starts with the center. Dallas drafted a good one in Cooper Beebe. I believe he's going to be a good player. But I think that is a key position, especially in the run game, when you can get movement at the point of attack and you can get the defensive line moving. Like, that's what Johnson showed at Oregon. He showed a big body that could move people. It's unfortunate he missed time, but I believe the sooner they can integrate him into the lineup, I think the stronger this line is going to get.
It's going to be a tall task to go into Baltimore and get a win, but how do the Raiders do it and shock the AFC early on?
Look, I mean, there's always a formula. I mean, I think Derrick Henry was great last week. He averaged 3.5 yards a carry. Lamar was unreal. I mean, he did what Lamar does. I mean, they had 450 yards of offense. They just didn't put up, but they only scored 20 points. I mean, they weren't productive with the way that they moved the ball. So, I mean, you might give up a lot of yards, but if they hold them to 20 points, you got a chance to win. Kansas City was able to do that. They came out with the win. So, but it's unusual for Justin Tucker to miss a field goal like he did. They didn't finish drives very well. They had a 4th down stop, that kind of stuff. It always starts, to me, when you want to upset somebody, Amber, it always starts with taking the ball away and giving your offense extra at-bats or good field position. They didn't do that last week against the Chargers. But that's part of Harbaugh's formula. Like, we're going to run the ball, we're not going to make mistakes, and we're going to play really strong in the trenches. And we're going to be tougher than the other team. And that's why they won that game. So, like, I think you could take a little bit of a page of it. They got the turnovers. One of them was a dumb play by the quarterback. But, they got the turnovers, whether it was at the end of the game or whatever. Taking the ball away and making Lamar pay for being, a runaround quarterback at times. I mean, he's special, but it'd be good if you smacked him pretty good and you knocked the ball loose when he wants to dart for one of these scrambles that he had last week against Kansas City.
Yeah, turnovers can change the whole momentum of a game. Nobody analyzes the trenches like you. We have worked together for a long time in the NFL. I want to do a little Baldy's breakdowns. For those of you that don't know, follow him on X. He does amazing Baldy's breakdowns. Let's do a silver and black edition. You've talked a lot about what you've seen on this Raiders offensive line. Why don't you give us a little breakdown?
All right, Amber, let's get to it. Let's get to the film room. You've been in there with me before. You know what this is like. Sometimes the truth is hard, but this is the best run the Raiders had all day. You can see you got a 6-man box right here. The safeties are back. Gilman, along with Derwin James, they're back. All right, you should be able to attack this front. But watch the center and right guard, okay? Watch James and Parham get movement at the point right here, okay? And then you get the backside right here. Cody right here is getting good movement. And here comes Colton. All right, so that's good. Now you got movement at the point. But watch Devontae here from a tight slot position, what he does to the inside linebacker right here. Like he puts a hit right there on Perriman. All right, so now you got a hat on a hat. You got movement, all right? And now this job right here of Zamir White, his job is run through this arm tackle of Perriman. And he does. And now he's on to the safeties. All right, that's a 12-yard gain, but you got good movement at the point. Now let's watch this right here. Like, it's not always the offensive lineman's fault. Like, I think this play right here is not badly blocked. All right, you can say that Parm should be more down the middle on the linebacker right here. But right here, there's a hole to the left. Like right here, to me, Zamir's got to go left, right behind Michael Mayer. Like Jacoby's in position. You can see Trey Tucker's in position. Like this play should gain yards. If he's got vision and if he can put that right foot in the ground, whether it's a 2-foot jump cut, but to me, to run right into the back of Whitehair right here is a mistake. Like you got to be better than this. There's a lane to the left right here. You can bounce that to the left, and there's yards to be gained. But because there was no penetration on this play should have gained more than no yards. There should have been a positive gain. And there's a lane back here to the backside. And I think, that's on Zamir right here. He's got to see that.
Did you see that vision at Georgia when you were watching him? Is that something that he hasn't had a lot of reps in the NFL? And we did like what we saw in the 4 games that we saw him fill in for Josh Jacobs at the end of last year.
Yeah, well, I mean, you learn a lot, the more you get to watch somebody. I mean, college is totally different than the pro game. They don't see fronts like this, or, it's harder to move big bodies right now. But I think when you look at this, like the nose tackle here takes on 2 blockers, and you can see like right here, James, there's a big split right here. And so I kind of like, if you look at this play, this is, I kind of started it a little too early here, but Michael Mayer is basically a lead back, and he's here to clean things up. But you can see that James and Whitehair have been split by the nose tackle on this play, Poona Ford. And so it eats up Mayer right here. And now really Zamir's got to stop his feet, and he's got to decide. Now, I still think there's a crease to the left. Like there's at least some daylight to the left. You got to go follow the daylight. That's his job. Press the hole, go find the daylight. Sometimes it's 6 inches of daylight. But yes, they didn't have a good double team at the point, and the result was it ate up Mayer. And so now Zamir is kind of just sticking it in there. And these are these early down. This was a 4th and 1 here, Amber. Yeah. I think when they missed in that first quarter on the 2nd and 1, the 3rd and 1, the 4th and 1, I think Coach Pierce really thought about that late in the game when they should have gone for it on 4th down. But he was like, man, I don't know if we can get a yard, and we're going to give the ball back to the Chargers. I think it affected them later in the game, making some decisions on some things.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. If you can't get a yard, you can't expect the coach to have faith in you, regardless of what the analytics are. You got any more for us, Baldy?
Yeah, like here, like look, you're a big 2 tight end team. We knew they would. Right? I mean, obviously, Brock and Michael are the tight ends. Now, they're putting him in a tough position right here because Mayer comes in motion. That's Joey Bosa out there. So Bosa's job, and I know Joey pretty good. Like, he's never going to get blocked by a tight end. Okay? It's just not in his DNA. His brother either. They're not getting blocked. So Mayer's in a tough spot right here. So right at the point, like Joey's going to beat him. So now you get color right at Zamir. All right? Like, that's tough. And now what it does is that block right here, like really Brock doesn't do a great job of holding leverage right here to get up on Henley. And so now you get both Bosa and Henley with leverage on Zamir. And now you get the corner involved. Like, that's not good. All right. So it takes everything. It takes the tight ends. It takes the running back, and it helps. A lot of that stuff can go away if you get movement at the point, and they didn't get great movement in that game. Now, I just want to show you this play right here, because sometimes the play calling is at fault. Like, this is a pass right here, and, this is a situation where Minshew gets sacked. But on this play, like, you got 3 verticals, all right, on this play right here. Like, it's 1st and 10. There's nothing short. You've got 3 straight verticals right here. And right here, Minshew's ready to throw. Nobody's ready to receive it. Okay, so now he's ready. He's hitching, and he's wanting to throw. and nobody's open and nobody's looking for the ball. So even if you throw this on anticipation to Devontae at the top, like, I'm not sure Gardner's going to make this throw. Maybe you hit Brock Bowers on the check down. They've got 2 safety valves leaking outside. But right here, Gardner's either got to hit his tight end right now, but he can't take a sack right here on first down. Like, this is a 12-yard sack. It's 2nd and 22. That's on the quarterback. And then one more play here. This is a 3rd down attempt right here. Now, it's 3rd and 6, I believe, Amber, maybe it's 3rd and 7, but Trey Tucker wins right away, and he's looking for him. Like, you got to make that throw. Like, that's on Gardner. He's been around this league a long time. Like, take the completion to Tucker. Maybe he gets you 6, maybe it's 4th and 1, maybe he gets the yard. But that corner is soft, he's off, and you're running the speed out on timing. The ball's got to come out right now. Now, for him to go back across to the 3-receiver side, like, now once he drops his eyes, Amber, it's over. All right? So that's exactly what he does right here. All right? He comes back. Okay, you got 3 receivers to the left, fine. You didn't take Tucker. He was open. It should have been out on time and with anticipation. Now, if you come back to the 3-receiver side, okay, but you can't now do what he did, and that's drop his eyes. He dropped his eyes right there. He's never going to see anything. And now the rush is coming, and now it's on him right here. And now all he's doing is throwing the ball away. When on 3rd and 7, that could have easily been a first down. Instead, they're attempting a field goal there.
So one thing I'm taking away from this is, if anybody blames the offensive line, the running backs, or the quarterbacks in a singular form, there was plenty of blame to go around and things that can improve all across the board. But the one thing that you pointed out that stood out was Trey Tucker. It feels like there needs to be that connection early in this game because it's the biggest downfield threat, and getting ahead of Baltimore and getting out to a fast start is probably a smart game plan.
Well, I think, Trey is, he's the speed guy in this offense. I think you got to get the defense thinking about him, worried about him. He can get behind a lot of corners and safeties in his business. If I think you get him involved, I think things will open up. But your point is the point I was trying to make. In just 6 plays, it's a small sample, Amber, but there's plenty of blame here. Anybody that's saying it all rolls downhill, it's all on the offensive line, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's plenty. The tight ends have to block better. When Devontae put his head in there and he got a good block at the point and he got movement at the point, Zamir made some good yards. His vision has to get better. There's too many examples where there's yards there, there's daylight there. You gotta maximize that.
Baldy, you just made me really miss you. I miss sitting in those film studies because I just felt like I learned so much, and you guys can learn a lot too. Check them out on X, NFL Media as well. Baldy's breakdowns, they are the best, really amazing. And next time you're in town, give me a call. We're going to go into the film room together again just for old time's sake.
We'll do that, Amber. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Head up, chin up. Go to the Charm City. Go shock the world. The Patriots just did that in Cincinnati. It's time for the Raiders to go do that.
Raider Nation loves you, Baldy. Thanks for being with us. Coming up, why Week 1 is not the time for any NFL team to panic. It's one last thing ahead on the Silver and Black Show.
Some days are long, some nights never end. I mark the fleeting seconds glide. I pray to the coming wind. And timelines never stood around for me. I love every sky I've
Taste is not an option. Taste is everything. 1800, the world's most awarded tequila.
In 300 feet, turn left.
With Cox's fiber-powered internet, you can do brilliant things.
Exit approaching.
Like upload your voice to Dad's GPS in no time flat.
And I miss you, Dad.
Get multi-gig download speeds powered by fiber. Upgrade your internet today with Cox, the nation's fastest internet provider. Limited availability in select areas.
Some days are long, some nights never end. I mark the fleeting seconds flight, I pray to the coming wind. And time like snow never stood around for me. I love every sky I've
The Silver and Black Show has been brought to you by Cox, proud partner of the Las Vegas Raiders, Ticketmaster, the official ticket marketplace of the Las Vegas Raiders and the NFL, and by Allegiant, the official airline of the Raiders. Low fares, non-stop flights, only at Allegiant.com. And head over to Raiders.com, where Raiders digital team reporter Levi Edwards does a breakdown of the in-game matchups for the game ahead in his weekly article, Versus. All right, it's time now for one last thing. Week 1 was a hot mess for a number of teams that are expected to compete for their divisions. The Bengals and Falcons laid an egg. Both were favorites coming into their games. So did Deshaun Watson and the Browns. They were also the favorites. And how about the Jets? What a wake-up call at the hands of the 49ers. It's a good reminder that Week 1 is just that. It's Week 1. The first time starters actually take the field together. Offenses are almost always behind defenses. And the positive is that this Raiders team believes there's a lot more meat on the bone than the effort we saw against the Chargers.
I believe in our guys, and I believe in our, our coaches and our schemes. So we're gonna, rebound and, lock in and do what we got to do this week to try to put ourselves in the best position.
Yeah, lock it in because it's too early for anyone to jump ship, especially on a team that has a rookie head coach like Antonio Pierce. Yeah, there'll be moments of growth, but listen to what Tony Romo, who called the Chargers game for CBS, had to say after the game.
I wouldn't worry about the Raiders. And Antonio Pierce is for real. I think he's outstanding in almost each area, that you want your head coach. He has a standard that he sets that they follow. His players play as hard as any unit or any team that you'll see on tape week in, week out.
Translation, keep the faith. Yes, traveling to the East Coast will be tough, but the Raiders need to find a way to change this number. Since 2021, Vegas is 0-6 in games played in the Eastern time zone. That's not good. This is too talented of a roster. They need to come out on Sunday on the road and show everyone they can compete with a contender in Week 2. That'll do it for us. It's Raiders-Ravens kickoff set for 10 a.m. Pacific at M&T Bank Stadium. We'll see you after the game for Raiders Game Day. Have a great weekend, everyone.